The 10th edition of Le Mans Classic was a huge festival. The high mass of endurance racing took place during the first weekend of July on the long 24-hour circuit. Over the duration of the weekend, nearly 200,000 fans visited the Le Mans circuit. An impressive figure showing to what extent the automobile and its history attracts a large crowd of connoisseurs, curious people and enthusiasts of all ages and all origins. Father and son, yes, historic car enthusiasts. Me, I came when I was younger and now I try to introduce my son to the subject. All cars that I've seen during my life, yes. When I was younger, I was part of the team that took the photos at the start. I started when I was 14. We are passionate, yes. My father has a lot of old cars and now we can watch how they worked. I've never been here before and I came to discover the event. After a 4 years absence due to the pandemic, all were waiting for the 10th edition of Le Mans Classic. It became a great festival, much to the satisfaction of Patrick Peter, creator and organizer of the event. We've waited a long time, yes, we've waited for 4 years. And apparently everybody was very impatient because the grids are full and apparently there's also a growing number of spectators and everyone is smiling, and that for me is a good thing. Le Mans Classic, that's more than 700 historic racing cars on track, but it's also a popular event that occupies the entire long circuit of the 24 hours of Le Mans with constant entertainment and events. Fans do not know where to look first and everything is done to immerse visitors in a period atmosphere.
Monter à l'intérieur, c'est quand même un petit peu ventilé, comme ça vous attendez pas de tout.
From racing cars to entertainment and even transport shuttles within the circuit. Here we are in the center of the paddock of Lamar Start circuit. This is where it all started 99 years ago in 1923 on a dirt track quite similar to the route of the current 24-hour circuit. For the first time, drivers competed in a 24-hour endurance Grand Prix with cars that were anything but easy to drive.
They're difficult. They're not easy cars. They have to double, you're heel towing, doubly clutching, the gearbox is the wrong way round. Yeah, you have to wrestle them. Yeah, it's not an easy drive, but it's a challenging drive.
Grid 1 of Le Mans Classic brings together 75 pre-war cars, the oldest of which is a 1924 Chenard Walker, the little sister of the very first car to win the Le Mans 24 hours. At the beginning of the history of motorsports, a good circuit was a fast circuit on which it was necessary to reach high speeds in order to prove the qualities and the robustness of the automobiles. As such, the Le Mans track was perfect with its long Mulsanne straight. Even today, with these nearly century-old cars, drivers flirt with speeds nearing 150 kilometers an hour, driving without seat belts aboard their Bugattis, Lagondas, Aston Martins, Rileys, Talbots or Bentleys. Bentley was also the first team in history to make its mark in Le Mans with 5 victories in the 1920s, and the famous Bentley boys at the wheel of these huge supercharged machines which reached very high top speeds. This is old number 3 because Bentley named its cars by their numbers.
Old number 3, correct. Number one won, number 2 was second, she ended up in the soundbite. So there are only 3 Bentley team cars from 1930. This is probably the most original. So it raced here in 1930 with Sammy Davis and Clive Dunphy. Unfortunately, it ended up in the sandbag at Ponteloo, but it's just a wonderful thing.
Following the 1930 triple, the Bentleys were dethroned by Alfa Romeo and its 8C, a racing beast with an exceptional 8-cylinder inline engine, a car that won both Grand Prix and endurance races. They were driven by Nuvolari, Cinetti, Summer and many other big names. This one took Alfa's fourth and last victory at Le Mans in 1934.
So that was sort of a pinnacle of its history. It was Luigi Cinetti and Constantine, which is a French Grand Prix driver, which is why it's French blue. It was a privateer entry. And it seems like there's a good affinity here with the ACO and everyone for the French patriotism. But won the race in '34 and then was able to survive all these years. It went to England shortly after, was sort of taken care of, and then in the 60s was taken apart and just sort of stayed in one ownership for many decades. And I thought it'd be really cool to bring it back to Le Mans. It hasn't been here since it won, so it was fun to be here last night and have it out on the track, and hopefully Constantine and Cinetti are happy that it's back.
And the 8C is still shown at Le Mans Classic because they finished first and second in this Grid 1 with cars from 1923 to 1939. Le Mans Classic celebrates the great history of the most famous of all endurance races, a story of incredible richness that is told in several eras, in several grids, the most recent of which brings together the cars of endurance racing legend. These prototypes and GTs that drove in the 24 hours between 1990 and 2010. And inevitably in this series, there are drivers who still have close ties with their cars, like Paul Belmondo back at the wheel of a Chrysler Viper, just like during the 1999 Le Mans 24 hours. Or Mike Newton, who simply brought the MG Lola from the Ray Mallock team, with which he took 9 starts in the 24 hours.
It is. It's the car I drove in 2004, so yes, it's great to be back in it. I must admit, the last prototype race was 2011, and in the last stint of that I thought, I wonder whether I'll ever get round Le Mans in a prototype again. So when this opportunity came up, it was an absolute dream come true.
The ERL race was also an opportunity to see iconic cars from the beginning of this century on the 24-hour circuit, such as the Audi R8 or the Panos Esperante or the sublime 2003 Bentley Speed 8. This example, owned by Sean Lynn, was the team's development car. And by doing a little deal with history, there were 2 Maseratis MC12s on the grid as well, cars that have never raced at Le Mans and which, to the delight of the fans, took to the 24-hour circuit for the first time in racing conditions during this Le Mans Classic. The Maserati MC12 is undoubtedly one of the most beautiful GTs ever built, the holy grail for many a collector.
I think the first time I saw it, I just wanted to hug it. And most race cars look fantastic. This car not only looked fantastic, it was beautiful. And I think that's where MC12 stands up amongst the greats of all time. It's a real treat. I mean, what a privilege to be, first of all, at Le Mans, and second of all, to be driving an MC12. Well, you only dream of that as kids. And you have to pinch yourself and realize it's sort of a special day.
The sound of this engine marked a whole generation, but also made history, because this Mazda 787B is the first Japanese car to win the 24 hours of Le Mans. with a rotary engine no less. The car with the recognizable sound was driven by Terada-san, 29 starts at Le Mans and a stalwart in the Mazda adventure.
Mazda is the first winning car manufacturer in Japan. But now the Toyota is going to strong. That's normal.
In Japan, Le Mans has legendary status, a race that inspires dreams and which over the past 5 years has thrilled Japanese fans even more, with 5 straight wins for Toyota. Yet the world's leading manufacturer had to chase that win for a long time, with an incredible line of prototypes, including the Toms 85C driven at the time by Satoru Nakajima. At Le Mans Classic, it was in the hands of his son, Kazuki, 3 times winner of the Le Mans 24 Hours.
Well, it's a big honor which you cannot believe. So many links to me. First of all, it's the first Toyota Group C car, the first Le Mans Challenger. And the car was basically born in 1985, same year as myself. And the third one, yeah, my father was driving, together with the Sekiya-san, who is like my teacher since I started my race career. And also the team, which was operating was Team Toms, which is my former team in Japan, and we have the boss of Toms here as well. So it's like putting everything together to one car. It's like such a lot of story.
Group C is without a doubt one of the most prolific and interesting periods of prototype cars in endurance racing. The regulations were quite open, and without going into all the details, suffice to say the cars had to be closed and there was a fixed quantity of fuel allocated per car. Apart from that, the engineers could almost do whatever they wanted. That resulted in a wide variety of different cars and attracted a large number of manufacturers. Porsche, obviously, with its 962. And Jaguar with the line of XJRs, each more elegant and efficient than the next. And it concluded with a Model 14 designed by Ross Brawn, a real F1 car with a bodywork. Or even this very rare Aston Martin AMR1, also directly inspired by F1 cars. And the most recent of Group C's, the Peugeot 905, victorious in 92 and 93. These cars are undoubtedly the most outstanding racing Peugeots in history.
This is an icon, and it deserves to be an icon, because what it did, this car was pole on Le Mans and third in the race, so then you are an icon.
This one is at the top. This is the iconic Peugeot. The others are a joke. First the arrival of the diesel engine for some, and then the new one, which is very beautiful, but it will never be as legendary as this one. No, this is the one. And among all these magnificent machines, 2 rarities were exhibited in the Group C paddock. 2 Nissans R90 CK, straight out of the Nissan warehouses where they had been kept as they were for 30 years. For me, it's very important to keep them in their original state, because it's so rare to find cars as original as this. You really have to preserve their appearance and at the same time make sure to get them ready to race. In any case, these cars must correspond to the regulations, so they must conform in all respects to what they were at the time. But what I think is important is to keep this patina, which is unique, and finally, 30 years later, to prolong the history of these cars and bring them back, in particular, to Le Mans. And Xavier, as a good collector, undoubtedly went for a little walk around the Art Curial auction, which offered an impressive range of objects and racing cars at Le Mans Classic, ranging from this Porsche 935 to a sublime Maserati A6 GCS or an ex-Alain Prost F1 car. There was also an impressive batch of 24 barn finds from a private collection. It's an exceptional collection. It is still magnificent to be able to discover such barn treasures today. They are truly magnificent cars. Pierre Héron was an engineer who was very interested in French machinery and know-how, collecting Talbots and Delahaye's and Hispanos and even Grégoire.
6 000, ici 6 000 contre Internet, à 6 000, 8 000, monsieur, 10 000, 8 000 euros, gratuit. À 71 000, alors j'adjure. 135 000, bravo. À 300 000, on adjure. Bravo.
Throughout the circuit, fans and enthusiasts can visit a number of exhibitions dedicated to the automobile, its history, its past, and sometimes even its future. Mercedes had brought one of its jewels from the museum, the victorious 300 SL from 1952. Many manufacturers were part of the Le Mans Classic festivities, such as BMW, celebrating the 50th anniversary of their M division. In the center of their exhibition was an M1, the first BMW from the motorsport family. A little further down the road, a bus rack, but not just any bus. This is a Citirama, or at least what's left of it. The Citirama company organized tours and visits for tourists in Paris and wanted a new type of vehicle. This bus has 2 floors and windows all round and was used in Paris from the mid-1950s to the 1970s. Of the 3 Citiramas that were built, all that remains is this rack. The FFVE, whose mission it is to preserve rolling heritage, has decided to support its owner with a call for donations so that the bus can be restored. It is estimated that the restoration of this vehicle, to restore it to working order, with its beautiful paintwork and put back all the windows, repair all the woodwork, etc., that it would take between 3 and 4 years when working at it full-time in a specialized workshop in Normandy. Budget-wise, it's a bit difficult to make an estimate, but today we launched a subscription for 100,000 euros. So who knows, maybe the Citirama will be part of the show at Le Mans Classic 2026. Le Mans Classic is serious business, whether you are 30 years old and over, or whether you are still a child, because during this weekend there is something for all generations.
On tourne à gauche et il y a un bon kilomètre. Et voilà. Okay. Mais ça, au milieu de la foule. Tout le bazar qu'il y a là. Ça va être tendu.
Also wie gesagt, du startest hier gerade, du fährst raus und fährst außen vorbei und dann fährst du an allen vorbei.
All the cars that are coming along, so they're going to be doing the Lamar Start in a moment.
A Lamar Start, but in miniature mode, because Le Mans Classic is also about the transmission of passion. Like in this race for children lucky enough to participate in Little Big Mans at the wheel of a miniature car. Moving moments for more than one. A few hundred meters to cover at the wheel of these small children's cars, and who knows? Maybe in a few years' time some of them will be at the start of Le Mans Classic again, bitten by passion like their elders, who arrive on the grid at 4 p.m. for the official start of Le Mans Classic. For this Lamar Start procedure, the cars of Grid 4 are parked on the right side of the circuit, and the drivers get ready to cross the track running to start the race. When you are the president of the ACO, such a moment obviously evokes a lot of things. It allows you to measure the path traveled through history by this world-famous race, but above all, there is the happiness of bringing satisfaction to the many motorsport fans. It is a real pleasure to see this crowd after these 4 difficult years we had to go through. We even have more people present than in 2018, and to see all these cars, this living museum, Le Mans Classic is a bit of a time machine, and it's a real treat. Rightly considered too dangerous because it did not allow the drivers to strap themselves in properly, the Lamar Start was abandoned for 1970. Grid 4 is for cars from 1962 to 1965, with a domination of Ferrari and the arrival of the Americans and their famous Shelby Cobra and Ford GT40. The stuff dreams are made of, frankly. Ferrari versus Ford story was recently told by Hollywood, and for this Le Mans Classic we prefer to look at other bizarrely shaped machines. Cars with sleek flowing lines that participated in a race within the race, that of the Performance Index. It was governed by 3 factors, taking into account engine capacity, weight and an hourly average. These 3 data made it possible to designate the car with the best performance. It resulted in the appearance of splendid cars with an incredible finesse and beauty that was rarely equaled. In the center of the village, an exhibition is entirely dedicated to the most emblematic of them, the Panhard. 24 racing cars, 12 of which took part in the 24 hours between 1950 and 1964. And these 24 exceptional cars participated in the track parade during the weekend. Obviously, there were some DB Panhards in the race as well, joined by the direct descendant of the cars in the exhibition, the CD Peugeot Sb66. This car is made especially for the Mulsanne straight with its fins. They allowed the driver to keep the car straight. It was developed in the wind tunnel by Mr. Choulet under the direction of Charles Dodge, who had actually designed this incredible car with an engine from a 204, a 1.1-litre engine with an unprecedented 5-speed gearbox. It's the only 204 engine fitted with a 5-speed gearbox, so this car was developed for Le Mans especially. This is the last running example of the 3 cars that took part in the 1966 24 hours. For the specialists, the CX of this machine was only 0.17, and thanks to its light weight, it could reach 250 km an hour in the Mulsanne straight. Unfortunately, none of the 3 Peugeot CDs would finish the race. In the 1960s, this Performance Index race was a very tough competition, in which French manufacturers excelled. From its A110, Alpine had derived the M63 and the M64. With its drop-shaped body, its featherweight and its small 1150cc engine, it achieved the feat of finishing 17th overall in 1964, of course winning the Performance Index trophy. Le Mans and its Mulsanne Straight have always been true laboratories for the engineers. As early as 1953, Jaguar revolutionized braking with the arrival of disc brakes on the C-Type, then improved aerodynamics with the iconic D-Type and its famous fin behind the driver's head. A machine that would claim 3 wins in a row in 55, 56 and 57.
Yeah, well, you have two aerodynamic elements of the car. It doesn't, of course, make any downforce, but you have the shark fin, which keeps the car nice and stable in a straight line, and of course that kind of aero bubble that sits over the driver as well. I'm yet to drive the car on the Mulsanne, but everybody who's spoken to me about it's already told me that it's a very calm place to sit inside, even though it's open top. The aerodynamics to keep the driver fresh over 24 hours, so let's see if that works in a few minutes.
In Grid 3 of Le Mans Classic there were several D-types, including this number 25, winner in 1955. They almost look like children's cars. A little faster, but on the other hand, at the time it took them almost 11 minutes to complete a lap. Under the slowly setting sun, the races follow another swiftly. In the village, the fans enjoy the many animations. Night falls slowly to the rhythm of the open-air screening of the Ford vs Ferrari movie.
Celle-ci, la forme est un peu plus bizarre, mais celle-ci. Mais ça ressemble aussi à certaines des Alfa en fait.
J'allais dire, je trouve que ça ressemble. Ouais, elles sont magnifiques.
Ça ressemble justement aux Alfa que t'aimes bien, ça c'est clair. Je pensais même pas qu'il y en avait autant en fait des.
At Le Mans Classic, the cars do not run for 24 hours continuously. The grids follow one another for 50-minute races with a mandatory pit stop during a pit stop window. Over the duration of the weekend, each grid has 3 races and everyone has a night session with period headlights. For the drivers, it's one of the highlights of the event. With the cars racing into the night, in the village the party is in full swing, with multiple balls, concerts and other festivities. At the wheel, some drivers discover night racing. For others, it's a welcome reacquaintance. It is often said that the night at Le Mans is magical, but only experienced drivers can tell us why. So who better than a 5-time winner to tell us about the feeling of driving a racing car at night, headlights ablaze.
Exactly, magic. The night is more difficult, more challenging, things happen faster, but it's magic, it's very, very special. So I'm driving 3 cars, and some of the owners don't really like to race at night, but I push them to do at least 1 lap, because if you don't drive at night, you don't really know Le Mans well.
5-time Le Mans winner Emanuele Pirro has participated in historic racing for quite some time now, and therefore is able to draw a parallel between historic and modern cars in terms of night driving.
I think each car has got its own character. Of course, the way the lights operate has got an impact in how difficult it is, but also the speeds. Of course, the higher the speed, the further you would like to see, because what happens, you have to pick the points. Like on the straight, you have to focus on the braking signals, otherwise you fear you're missing the braking point. So, but it's never going to be perfect, and this is why it's a challenge. But for sure, when you do a quick lap, here is historic, so we're not talking about ultimate speed, but in real life or in modern racing, when you do a good lap at night, it gives you even more satisfaction.
During this first weekend of July, Le Mans never sleeps. And all of this is taking place under the watchful eye of Richard Mille, the title partner of Le Mans Classic, without whom this adventure, now in its 10th edition, would never have existed. You know, every year or every 2 years we say that we reach the acceptable limit in terms of population, because this success is ever growing. But we're not going to complain either. And like almost all racing fans, Richard, as a true collector and enthusiast, has a favorite car. I have one, of course, the one that I always liked, but I don't own one. It's always like that. It's the Ferrari 312P. It's the most beautiful racing car that has ever been made. It's a work of art. The shape of the car is absolutely perfect and spectacular. It does not have a very great track record, but it's a sumptuous car. Ferrari 312 is on the pre-grid of grid 5 in the middle of the night. A grid in which we find Paul Belmondo ready to leave at the wheel of a Lola T70. Despite the late hour, he's happy to be here. It's a combination of things. It's the car, it's the fact of driving here. After all, this was a car that was quite advanced for its time. It's a prototype, and even if it's a 68 or a 69 car, it's still a fast one. So I really enjoy driving it. That's what's surprising. Only a few meters behind Belmondo, there is a bike rider aboard the GT40 of Philippe Van Drome. Cyril Dupré, who won the Dakar Rally 5 times on 2 wheels, makes his Le Mans Classic debut. Taking the start of a race at 2 o'clock in the morning at Le Mans, that's quite normal. On the other hand, if you're in the desert at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's because your day is not over, that you've had plenty of problems. So in a rally race, that would not be great. But here, I'm rather happy. And I'm pretty excited as well. It's already incredible that I can drive an iconic car like this one during the day, but I think that at night I will discover a whole new world. This is a first for me. I've been racing for 25 years now, but I've never raced a car at night. It's a quiet night, under the watchful eye of the race direction.
Et on va chercher celle-ci là maintenant. Je voudrais pas faire une zone.
32 pour PC poste 32 s'il vous plaît. Ok, 26 c'est radio.
On la pousse dans.
Ouais, poste 32, vous avez une voiture arrêtée.
Fans are more sparse in the paddocks now, but for others there is no question of going to bed. Derek Drinkwater did not take his Cadillac Le Monstre from England to retire during the night with a broken engine.
About a mile out, it lost the bottom end. So we just about changed the engine, just a little job.
There's a new engine you're going to put in for tomorrow morning.
It's the engine out of its sister, which is the other Cadillac. So we've got the other Cunningham car. So what we've done, we took her little heart and she's going to share it with this one.
And will you be awake enough to drive it then after that?
Yeah, a couple of hours. It's going to be close. It's not too bad to take out, but it's very heavy to put in. So I want to get it done for the next race. It's just such a big engine to get out and heavy. Once we move it, then it will be okay. So it should take me about an hour to get it out, and then I had put it in 4 hours, so I've got to speed up a little bit.
The Cadillac Le Monstre is a fine example of the continued interest American manufacturers have shown in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Some manufacturers have entered several times to claim the overall win, and some privateer teams have also come and tried their luck. Some even bought curiosities like NASCAR cars. In 1976, to celebrate the bicentenary of the American Revolution, the ACO had invited NASCAR cars to the 24 Hours, including a Dodge Charger identical to this one. A NASCAR machine is made to race on oval tracks during the daytime, so therefore had to be modified for racing in Le Mans. For Le Mans, we have fitted 2 original headlights and 2 additional long-range headlights to see a little more clearly in the night. Still, a NASCAR is not made to drive on a road circuit. Entering Le Mans with such a machine was a bit of a crazy idea.
It's a
locomotive. You need some muscle to make it turn, but to go straight, it's perfect. And it has some braking power too with its 4 disc brakes. So it slows down nicely, it drives really well, and yeah, there's plenty under the hood as well. In 1976, Dick was part of the adventure as a mechanic at Dodge. He has a precise recollection of the main issue the team encountered in La Sarthe.
Well, the biggest problem we had here was the fact that when we race in NASCAR in the U.S., we have a certain octane of fuel. When we got here, we couldn't get the same octane of fuel. And so we blew up 3 motors before we only could run a half an hour. So we tried everything we could possibly do to make them work, but we just couldn't make them work. So.
History is an eternal beginning, and next year, for the centenary of the 24 Hours, the ACO has again invited the NASCAR car. It will definitely be one of the curiosities of the event. Day breaks on the Le Mans circuit, and the cars from Grid 5 are once again on track. Within this group of cars of the period between 66 and 71, there are some other iconic machines of Le Mans, such as the Porsche 917, in 1970 the very first Porsche to win the 24 Hours. Only one was at the start this year. During these years, the 917 was unbeatable, yet at Le Mans Classic it was dominated by the Ferrari 312P. But all of this is ultimately not very important. The main thing was everybody was able to admire these 2 beautiful cars on track. Another rarity is the Ford GT40 Mark IV. As the last of the line of GT40s, it experienced dazzling and immediate success at its first start in Le Mans in 1967, with Dan Gurney and AJ Foyt at the wheel. 12 chassis were built, and their rarity, as well as their immense value, means that the original cars hardly ever appear in races. The 2 models lined up at Le Mans Classic are so-called continuations.
Well, the Mark IV ran at Sebring once and here once and never ran again. So it appeared in 2 races in the world, one in America and one in France, and then they parked them. They constructed 12 original chassis in time. They raced 8 crashed the first one, crashed the second one, and then raced the intervening group. The rest were, 2 were converted into Can-Am cars, very unsuccessfully, and 2 were spare chassis that flew to Le Mans in '67, sat in the bunker, and never were built until the late 80s. So the car has an iconic impact on American racing in Le Mans, but really very rarely seen. And the project we did was to put together the car is in an accurate sense. Everything about it is accurate to 1967, but they never are on the track anywhere. You don't see them. There are 4 of them sitting in museums, and they never turn speed, never turn anger. So that was what I really wanted to do with it.
In BMWs, most engines are 6 cylinders in line. Here there are 4. There's nothing left at all. Yes, it's just the base of the car. A chassis, a roll hoop for rigidity, and that's it. For many enthusiasts, visiting Le Mans Classic is a family activity, a weekend excursion aboard the time machine. Lots of them arrive here as a member of a club. Make, model, period, everything goes to be able to meet between passionate amateurs. So you still have your 630? Ah, there it is. So it's the same you had since 2010? Yes, since 2010. Yes, that's it. Anyway, thank you for being here, because I think you have one of the most... People love to watch a display with all these little accessories, and the bus is great as well. Well, thank you. For me, it's a first at Le Mans. Yes, I know, and I hope you come back next year. Or you can be sure you haven't seen the last of me.
Je vous donne une baguette. Baguette. Et panier pour vous. Et panier. Une baguette et un panier pour vous. Comment je les tiens?
It's very relaxed and very pleasant. You can sit at a table and chat with people. It's no problem at all. The only regret we have is that my friends didn't come with us, but after the pictures we sent them, that'll teach them. The clubs are all grouped around the Bugatti circuit in Le Mans, and there are hundreds of cars that make up a patchwork of colours and models, just a stone's throw away from the paddock. A paddock in which we find Derek, who has repaired the V8 of his Cadillac and is about to race again.
It went really well, really pleased. I'm so pleased to get it going for Le Mans, because so many people have been saying, I love the car, etc. So it's sort of selfish for me to say I've done it for me, because I've sort of the whole thing. But we did a 645 with an engine that came out of the car that we raced in 2016. So, and that's a genuine 10,000 mile engine.
The repairs allow our collector to participate in the Lamar Start of Grid 2, which takes place on Sunday morning. In this Grid 2 we also see the only Skoda at the start. The Sport from 1949 is a real gem, and there is a nice family story behind it.
This car was designed in 1950, and the chief designer of the bodywork was my grandfather, so it's a really family story. It's a piece of art of me. It has a long history. It started 1949 with one type engine, which is currently here in, but later became another cylinder head, another engine, and every change means change of position of carburetor, and it means another hole in the bonnet, another position, so all those changes are visible there.
There are many such family stories at Le Mans Classic. Elsewhere in the paddock of Grid 2, there is a Peugeot 203 Constantine. My grandfather raced in 1952-53 in a coupe Constantine equipped with a Peugeot 203 compressor engine. It also had patented Constantine stabilizers. And in 54 and 55 he continued with Peugeot engines, but this time on a Barquette Constantine in aluminium with a 2-litre engine. Frank's grandfather, in addition to being a driver, was also a tuner. He had fitted a 203 with a compressor and worked on all the chassis settings to turn this popular family car into a racing machine. So when Salim Bouziane decided to rebuild the model, he had to delve into his friend's family archives. We are lucky to have Franck Constantine, who sent us a lot of documentation to rebuild this car in accordance with what was done in '53. Period compressor, engine preparation, chassis with stabilizers. We had to do a lot of reverse engineering to find the mechanical elements and settings. Because we think these are old designs, but we have to find the balance that Alexis Constantin had found in the past. And that means a lot of work and a lot of tests. The vast majority of cars entered in Le Mans Classic have a history. Sometimes a family one, linked to a result, or even to a bit of a stunt, like this Talbot Lago T26. Originally it was a car with exposed wheels, but for Le Mans its driver had asked Charles Dodge to design a more aerodynamic bodywork. Rightly so, for the result is just superb, matching the performance of its driver in 1952. It was built in 49 and rebodied in 52 for Le Mans. It was a Levesque's car and he was at the wheel for 23 hours straight. He did not want to pass the car to his co-driver. But unfortunately, after 23 hours of racing, he was tired and he must have missed a gear and the engine gave up. But what he did was a real exploit, because driving a car like that for 23 hours in a row on the Le Mans circuit, that was not the same as it is today. It was a car that did 260 kilometers an hour at the time, and I think he had to go for it. The exploit of Pierre Levesque was noticed by Alfred Neubauer, who hired him at Mercedes the following year, leading to the disastrous fate and a terrible accident of 1955. Our journey through time at Le Mans Classic comes to an end with a visit to Grid 6, which has cars from the 72 to 81 period. Once again, there is a wide variety of racing cars, including an old Ford Capri entered in La Sarthe in 1972. It's the property of its driver, Roger Townsend, who has travelled far from a country in which Le Mans is very popular, New Zealand.
Very big, because Kiwi won it a month ago again, and Kiwis have won it since the 60s on and off. New Zealand's a very big, strong motorsport country, and for our population we probably punch above our weight, so it gets pretty good support really. Yeah.
In 1971, Ferrari decided to devote itself entirely to F1. No more sports cars would be officially entered by the factory. However, Ferrari never completely left Le Mans. Customers or dealerships, often with support from the factory, developed and ran prancing horses in Le Mans. The 365 GTB4 Daytona battled in GT on several occasions, and when the 512BB arrived on the market, many saw a GT car with tremendous potential. In 1979, that led to the creation of the sublime BBLM. A longer and sleeker body, a bigger engine and specific preparation made this Ferrari an icon of the 80s. The few collectors who own one carefully take care of them, but fortunately, they do not hesitate to race them even today. This is Fabrizio Violati's car. He did Le Mans in 1980 and had made his own modifications to the engine. Since then, the car has only had 2 consecutive owners. It's a fantastic car. It's my favorite by far. Driving your favorite car for many years to come is obviously what all drivers and all fans of old cars want. But will this be possible in the future and in the ecological transition that is taking place? The people at Peter Otto are of course sensitive to the problem, and this year for the first time several cars were powered by a carbon-neutral synthetic fuel. No doubt a step towards sustainability. At least that is the goal of all organizers of historic races. For 3 days, the Le Mans circuit lived to the rhythm of Le Mans Classic, a huge festival for all fans of historic cars, racing, extraordinary atmosphere, and of course for all those who love this unique race. During these 3 days, it was undoubtedly René Arnoux, former Renault and Ferrari driver in F1 and a 5-time participant at Le Mans, who best summed up the passion shared during this 10th edition of Le Mans Classic. I hate cars that are in museums, in living rooms or behind glass. A car must smell of oil, fuel, brakes and everything that goes with it. And here people are racing very beautiful cars. In addition, it lasts for 3 days with exceptional cars, starting grids that are constantly changing, and everybody is part of it. It's just fabulous. The event is traditionally organized every 2 years, but for once the pandemic has a positive effect. For after 2 consecutive postponements, the team of Patrick Péter has decided to organize an 11th edition of Le Mans Classic in 2023, the year of the centenary of the biggest race in the world. So, see you next year.